Excellent day for an exorcism.
Thrill me.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Horror Flicks and Guitar Picks podcast. I'm your host, Tim. And today, I'm joined by the one and only makeup effects artist and sculptor, Mikey Rotella, of the films Smile, The Thing 2011, Werewolf by Night, the 2022 reboot of Hellraiser, the CreepshowTV series, and a bunch more. Now, just a quick heads up for those that don't know, this episode was originally recorded back in November of 2023 when the show was only going to be audio format, and I unfortunately lost it back then. At the time, I wasn't sure if I just lost it in a file folder or if I just never recorded it to begin with, so I thought it was gone completely. However, luckily enough, when I was moving stuff around and clearing out my computer to get ready to make the jump to YouTube and video editing, I found it in this random folder, and I'm super stoked to get to share it with you all. If you enjoy the show and you're watching on YouTube, just make sure you like and subscribe, or if you're listening over on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any other podcast platform, just make sure you leave a rating, as it all helps a ton. Thank you all so much for listening, and let's get into this week's episode.
Dude, how's it going, man?
Same old shit, man. I'm stoked to finally have you on the show. It's been a long time in the works for sure.
Dude, totally, man. Yeah, we've been trying to figure this out for a minute. Sorry if I've been difficult, but, schedules are nuts and stuff like that. Dude, I'm a fan, though. I love your show. I listen to it all the time. Seriously, man. It's cool as hell.
No, hell yeah. I appreciate that for sure. That's one of the, honestly, I think it falls on me because when I was looking back at our messages, I think it was one of those times where it was like, I like to hit up people, and then when they hit me back up, it's like usually like you were like quick to respond, but you were busy at the time working on something. And then I think at that time you were like, hit me up, at this moment, and I'll have some free time. And I was like, okay, I will do. And then I forgot about it because it's just, you know what I mean? So I need to actually get a wall calendar again because I've moved so much that I lost my wall calendar. I used to write that shit on, but.
No, dude, I hear you, man. It gets crazy. Schedules are nuts. And I know, dude, we have a podcast too, and dude, we do a podcast like once a year. Like we actually post it once a year because my buddy Derek runs our podcast, and it takes so long to produce. And like you got a lot of production value in your thing too. Like even your opening and stuff, like with all the different clips and everything. I mean, that's hard to put together. You do that yourself, or?
Yeah, it's pretty much all DIY. I've never really produced anything, but when I started doing podcasting back in like 2019, I originally was doing it like via Anchor had just started kind of being a thing, and you could like almost call people via Anchor and do it off your phone. So like I'd done it like originally through that, and then I just went out and invested in like a mic and a computer. And I had played music growing up, so I have like and I used to write music through like a tab app, like Guitar Pro and stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with any of that stuff, but
Yeah.
But pretty much, I'm a little bit familiar with like editing that and doing that, and I feel like editing audio is very similar to the way that you have to edit that stuff, because it is editing audio. It's just audio that you've written at that point, in those things. So that kind of transferred into just like learning how to edit this stuff. And then I had a few people that I just reached out to and was like, "Hey, like, what's a good audio editing software to use?" And they were like, "Use Audacity." And then when I went to we literally went to Best Buy to buy the mic and computer, and I was like, I picked the computer on my own because I was like, I don't want them to talk me into something I don't need. But then when it came to the microphone, I let somebody actually tell me which one was the best one and shit like that. So it just worked out.
That's awesome. No, dude, production value is on point, man. Seriously. I always like when I listen to the intro, I always like, man, I gotta try to guess those quotes and what the movies come from and stuff. You know what I mean? I love it. Because you've changed it a couple times, and I'm like, I love the different things,
Oh yeah, I appreciate it. No, and all that music's pretty much stuff either that I wrote for like a band that didn't get used, and then like the latest one is like a breakdown from an old band I was in, so I just used that because it was like the best sounding production because we like paid for all that stuff back then. So
yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, it works, and that breakdown's pretty badass.
Oh yeah, I appreciate that, man. But now I enjoy y'all show too. It's very funny, and I like the all the samples and like clips and stuff. The guy like cuts it. Like I was listening to the recent episode that you were talking about, the one that came out in October, where he cut in Goonies for you. Where he's like, Mikey.
Oh, dude, yeah, because if he tries to find Mikey, like whenever he says Mikey, it's hilarious. And that one was perfect, the Mikey run clip. But dude, Derek, the dude that he runs that whole podcast and the whole website and stuff. He's a genius, man. Like he so much set up, and like we have our own little keyboards, so we're like hitting our own sound bites like real time in the studio together. It's so funny, dude. We're like pissing our pants in there.
Oh yeah. We can actually kind of just go ahead and segue right into the podcast if you want, because it's been recorded, and I'll just like edit out some of the small talk. But if you want to kind of just promote that, the podcast is called Hollywood and Shindig. Do you want to give people like a little bit of a idea of what it is? Because it's also a playlist too. That's kind of what it builds off of.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. My buddy Derek Reynolds, he started this playlist maybe like 15 years ago or something like that, like maybe longer. I don't know, but it just
Yeah.
started as like a literal like burn CD where he would just put songs that had something to do with like horror movies or Halloween or like just horror bands and stuff like that. They all
Yeah.
had to be like referential to something that made sense on Halloween though. So we were going to all these Halloween parties and people were just playing like techno and weird shit. And we're like, this has nothing to do with Halloween. This is ridiculous. So he would like kind of like co-op these parties and like make the DJ play this stuff. And it was so hilarious. And people loved these playlists. And he just kept adding and adding to it like over the years. And it actually became a blog. So he started blogging all these songs and posting all these songs, posting like full downloads of the playlist and stuff like that. Then eventually we turned it into a podcast, most recently. And
Yeah.
so it's HalloweenShindig.com. Check that out. And the podcast is called Shindig Radio. And that's where we basically just talk about, all the ridiculous music from horror movies and fun songs and just really obscure garbage, but it's fun.
Oh yeah. Now I found myself the other day trying to explain to somebody how when you would burn CDs, you could burn like a regular CD and then you could burn like an MP3 CD that would only play in certain things. That was like, and they like didn't get it, and I was like, it's too much to explain at this point. I was like, when you started talking about that, I was like, I'm sure that's probably what they had to do to like get that big of a playlist onto one CD and shit like that. Was the MP3 style where.
Well, yeah, and it just kept adding and adding and adding, so it just kept
Yeah.
getting crazier and crazier. And then we had like an iPod. The whole thing was on an iPod. Like if anybody remembers those things, So we would like go to parties and just be like, "Oops," and like pull out the cords and like plug the iPod in and just play the Shindig at the party. And all of a sudden, people would start being like, "What the fuck? What is this?" Oh shit, this is awesome. And then all of a sudden, I know this. This is from this movie. This is from that movie. This is the Monster Squad theme song. Like that stupid shit. It's fun though.
Fuck yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. I just went to we got a local record store here finally in my small town in North Carolina, and one of the first things I picked up there was the Fat Boys record that has the Freddy rap on it. So,
Oh, dude, are you ready for Freddy, man? We're
yeah.
obsessed with that. Like Derek, he's got the VHS and the VHS, the record and all that stuff. And he did a whole write up on the Fat Boys and Are You Ready for Freddy? And what's crazy is we do these monster raps episodes, and he did one because everybody knows Are You Ready for Freddy and Nightmare on My Street by Will Smith, right? But he went and found all these more obscure hip hop songs from the day, like from the early 80s about Freddy. So there's like, we had no idea there were more. So all these weird, obscure Freddy raps is hilarious.
Fuck yeah, that's awesome. No,
So stupid.
no, I picked that up, and then Phantom of the Paradise was like the only two horror things they had, so I picked that up too, which is a good one. But
Oh, dude, yeah, Paul Williams, man. Talk about one of the best musicals of all time. I love that movie. Sick.
yeah. No, it's highly underrated. I feel like it would get a second wind if it would just hit something like streaming, but it hasn't been on. Like you have to pay to like rent it. So if it like got thrown on Shutter, I feel like a lot of like younger crowd might find it, and fall in love with it again. So
Oh, for sure, man. That should be up there with Rocky Horror, if you ask me. Like that's like those are the two for me, like neck and neck. But yeah, that I could use a resurgence. Even if they just took some of those songs and threw them in one of these like rehash things, like Stranger Things, like the same thing that happened to Kate Bush. Like Paul Williams, Phantom of the Paradise explodes again. That'd be sick.
yeah, hell yeah. No, definitely have them like watching it on TV or some shit like that. But
Yeah. What is this?
yeah, oh yeah. But and then of course, while we were doing the promo stuff, do you want to promote, Nightmare Force Mask? You have a mask company and everything.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah, that's my buddy Josh Wasling started a company called Nightmare Force Masks. I kind of helped him found it. We just kind of came up with it, and it was kind of funny. Sort of relevant to your show. We always wanted to start a metal band, but it was just two of us, and I can scream a little bit, but I can't play anything. And he's a good bass player, but we could never get it together. So we basically designed this mask company like if it was a band. Like, we got to get a cool name, and we'll get like like a cool catalog, a bunch of cool T-shirts and like patches and stuff like that, and just like be like kind of the heavy metal like '80s mask dudes, And it's kind of exploded. Like it's doing really awesome. And check out Nightmare Force Masks, if anybody's interested.
Fuck yeah. No, you definitely got some sick work. I enjoy, just following you on Instagram and seeing a lot of the stuff that you post is really cool too. So,
Oh, thanks, Steve. Thank you. I appreciate it.
oh yeah. But of course, we can jump into the horror movie questions and stuff like that, which are, pretty much everything we talked about has been horror so far because it's all horror related. But pretty much I'm going to kind of just go like a lot of my general questions and kind of mix in some stuff about some of your sculpting work and stuff, towards the end or towards the back half or whatever. But to start out, where did, your love of horror movies just start for you growing up?
I started when I was a real young kid. My dad actually sang in the movie Friday the 13th. So it's kind of like weird. Like his voice is sort of in the background of a few scenes,
Oh yeah.
singing with my aunt, right? And his one of his producers and keyboard players and guy that he would collaborate all the time with was Harry Manfredini. So Harry did the music and stuff. He's like, I need some singers. He got my dad involved. And what's crazy is my dad's like real hardcore religious, so he wasn't into like the subject matter of the movie. So he like goes around and like sings like Jesus music and stuff, and like talks about how he didn't want to be in this slasher movie that became like kind of like iconic. But to
Yeah.
me, I was like proud of it as a little kid, like, oh dude, my dad sang a Friday the 13th. So it was
Fuck
kind of
yeah.
like I always knew about horror movies, even though I wasn't really allowed to be part of that world as a kid. But my dad would like let me rent stuff like Predator and stuff, and we'd watch all these different movies, but it was sort of like cover your eyes during the nude scenes and stuff. I remember like American Werewolf, like you could watch Jack getting shredded by the wolf, but then he'd cover my eyes during the porno theater scene and stuff like that. It's like such a
Yeah.
weird relationship. But I just kind of got obsessed with that stuff. Started reading Fangoria as a kid and Gore Zone and stuff, and really got into like makeup effects. And I was like, man, I want to do this for a living. Like I want to make monsters for a living and work on some of these movies. And that's what I did, just always been obsessed with it.
Fuck yeah. No, that was my mom's same philosophy. She was like, of course, like if it scared the shit out of me, she wouldn't let me watch it again because she didn't want to like deal with me not sleeping and stuff. But she was like, you can watch as much Final Destination as you want, but as soon as you throw on anything that has some titties, I'm watching it with you and I'm covering your eyes when they come on. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
'Cause
it's so weird, man. It's like it kind of messes your whole head up. You're like, wait, this isn't cool. This is like a natural part of life. This person's being shredded or like some stab in their head or being electrocuted. That part's cool. You can check that out. It's like it's so silly. But yeah,
yeah.
dude, it's it's kind of weird because like just all the stuff that I was so scared of as a kid, like it like traumatized me. I became obsessed with later. So like most of these movies did scare the hell out of me. I had nightmares and I would freak out. I was afraid of Freddy and stuff, but now it's like my favorite shit. It's kind of weird how your brain flips like that.
No, exactly the same. I was terrified of it as a kid. Like there was a, my mom always tells a story because like I don't remember it, of course, because I was at a young age, like maybe 5 or 6, and my mom and dad were divorced since I was like 2 or whatever, or even before I was born. I don't even remember, but uh, so I go back and forth, and I don't remember watching Interview with a Vampire to this day. Uh, this might get some people like digging at my horror card, but I mean, it's a fucking vampire love story. I've never seen an Interview with a Vampire because I don't like Tom Cruise. I hate Tom Cruise. I don't watch his movies. So I've never seen an Interview with a Vampire. But she said one day that she turned it on, her and like my now stepdad of like 20 years or whatever, or 20 plus years. And she said she put it on one time and I came running out of my bedroom and was like freaking out just at the intro music, like turn it off. Like it was the scariest movie she's ever like like I'd ever seen and stuff like that. So it's like, but nowadays I can watch like I went and saw like I just went and saw Thanksgiving, just 2 nights ago, and some people in the crowd were squirming and all this, and I'm just over here laughing and like having the best time. And I saw When Evil Lurks in theaters, and the same thing with that. So
Dude, it's crazy. I mean, I'm the same way. I've actually repressed memories of watching horror movies from when I was a kid. Like there was this movie called The Mephisto Waltz from the '70s, right? And it's this crazy Satan movie, and it's pretty badass. But there's this one specific scene where like this dude is at a party. I don't know if it's a dream sequence or what. It's totally surreal though. But he's at this like weird masquerade ball, and there's this chick who's like in like lingerie and shit, but she's leading this dog around on a leash, and the dog has a human head.
oh
It's like
shit.
the creepiest shit ever. And I would have nightmares about this all the time, but not realize that I'd probably just seen it on like HBO late at night when I was a kid. So
Yeah.
one night I'm watching this movie and that scene pops up and I almost had a fucking heart attack because I'm like, what? That's from my dream. That's exactly my dream. It freaked me out. But,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, now it's
No,
like one of my favorite movies. It fucking rules. But
No, definitely. I think we all have that movie that we like saw at a young age, and then we finally catch it later, and we're like, we weren't fucking dream. Like that's why I have such a love for the movie Freaked by Alex Winter's Freaked.
Oh,
Uh,
it's great.
Yeah, and it's because it's like I saw it as a kid, and then like my whole life I was like, dude, that must have been a fucking fever dream because it was never like streaming on anything. And then finally somebody like posted about it, and I was like, that's the movie. And I like looked at it. It's like it's actually somebody's got the full thing up on YouTube in a decent rip, so I watch it on YouTube all the time. But that's another one, just like Phantom of the Paradise. I think if it hit the right streaming service, it could get another life as like a great loved horror comedy. So.
Yeah, I don't know why there are certain movies like that that kind of get lost, and like I don't know if there's rights issues or whatever, but it's like that needs a huge like mega release, like Blu-ray with like the whole like behind the scenes thing. Or it needs something like that. It has to happen. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. Now, me and my buddy were just talking about that. It's kind of like movies that were connected to the Menendez brothers. I don't know if you knew about that, but their dad or whatever, he was a producer. He like produced Fright Night Part 2. There was something else that was he was a producer on that pretty much when he died, when they murdered their parents,
Yeah,
it fucked up like the release of Fright Night Part 2, a couple other things. And so like I wonder, thinking about that, I'm like a lot of these movies get produced by people with like old money, you know what I mean? So it's older people with like really old people with money. So who's to say like I did a watch along for Patreon with my buddy. That's what kind of got us talking about it, is we were watching that movie Trailer Park of Terror that came back out in 2008, and
yeah, yeah.
it was produced by some company we had never really heard. It was like Summit, and then some other company was the producers, and then and the director had passed away. But the movie had like a DVD release and is like never really gotten put on any streaming services, and kind of got the same treatment as some of these other ones we're talking about, just a little bit more recent release to begin with. But that kind of got us talking about that kind of stuff. It's like I wonder if a lot of those guys just pass away and that shit's just sitting in limbo because people don't care. They're like they don't see money in that shit. You know what I mean? Because it's just like there's so many movies out there.
A lot of this stuff too is done so independent that like they have to break up the rights. Like, oh, we'll give you the rights to this because we can't pay you for that now, and blah blah. And then like you have people that have rights to characters, but then other people have rights to stories, and then you have rights to like licensing the actual names and images. It's so random and weird. Then like in the 70s and 80s, you had all that the crazy video nasties thing. So stuff was literally banned, and then like those things go into like a vault somewhere literally and sit there and rot forever. That's why it's so cool that there's so many companies like Severin and Blue Underground and stuff like that. Like they're like bringing out all these lost movies and bringing them back out. It's like so sick, man. It's a really good time for all that stuff, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. That's like pretty much why they say we'll never get like a true Tales from the Crypt series again, because like the Crypt Keeper is owned by one person and then the series is owned by another person and stuff like that. And it's like, which I mean, we got Creepshow, which is awesome, which we can we'll jump around a little bit. I'll ask a little bit of kind of segue into my question that includes the Creepshow in there. You got to work with showrunner Nick Otero with some Creepshow episodes, as well as Berger over on I'm no, sir, if I'm not mistaken, Howard Berger worked on Werewolf by Night with you guys is do you remember the first time that you had a moment with like a legend like that you grew up on and like really admired, that you were like, oh shit, this is fucking cool, I get to work with those dudes?
Well, yeah, K&B is a big one. I've been at K&B for a minute now, and I mean
Oh yeah.
that's Howard Berger and Greg Nicotero. That's their company, right? So they're both owners. So it's like we jump back from like Howard shows to Greg shows, and sometimes
Yeah.
we all work together. It's pretty sick, man. And I mean those are the guys I was reading about in Fangoria as a kid, and I was like, man, someday I'll work at K&B someday, in my head. And then when you actually get there, you're like, this is nuts. Like this is actually happening, and then sometimes I'm sitting there bullshitting about movies just like me and you are right now with Howard Berger, and that's like
Yeah.
the craziest thing in my head. And this dude, like, he was in Night of the Creeps, you know what I'm saying? Like it's like in Wishmaster and stuff like this guy, you see him on screen. It's just kind of wild. But yeah, I've had a lot of opportunities like that, luckily. I mean, I've worked with one of the biggest ones for me was Matt Rose. When I got to actually sculpt with Matt Rose, I mean, that guy, he made the Predator, you know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
that head, he sculpted that head, he did that. And to him it was like no big deal, that was just a gig, but to me that's like that kind of changed my life, and that guy is amazing. But yeah, I've got to work with a lot of badasses, so pretty lucky with that.
Fuck yeah. No, that's just me doing poor research. I didn't know you're at KMB like as part of like the studio. That's awesome. I've had it Burger on, but I haven't had Nicotero on. I had Kurtzman on. That was pretty fun too. So I've had K and B, but just not, or K and N. Or K and B. I haven't had the N. Yeah.
Well,
But
that's what's crazy is I work at K&B and I never worked with the K. You know what I'm saying? Because like
yeah,
they split up a while back, in the day, and I mean he's like killing it too. Like his company does awesome stuff, but I think they're located in Ohio and maybe now in Atlanta. But yeah, so I've never got to work, but I got to meet Robert a couple times, and he's a badass too. I mean,
yeah.
you know, from Dusk Till Dawn was a big deal for me. That was like the right age for that, like where I was like, this little punk kid just going to see movies. I think I saw it like 3 times in the theater or something like that. Like stupid.
No, fuck yeah, that's awesome. That's definitely top three vampire films of all, probably top two vampire films of all time for me. Like that and Lost Boys are like 1 and 2. It depends on which one I've watched more recently. I feel like.
Yeah. No, for sure, man. I those Lost Boys, from Dusk Till Dawn and Near Dark is a huge one for me too. Like, I mean, I love, well, those are my top three. And Fright Night, it's hard
Yeah.
to like, get your top, you know what I mean? Because it's like, Fright Night's just classic. But anything like that, I mean, From Dusk Till Dawn's in that world too, like Fright Night, where it's just rubber monsters, like constant. There's like tons of different things, suits and all kinds of stuff, puppets, and that's what got me obsessed with that stuff. So it's pretty sick.
Fuck yeah. No, no. You mentioned Gore Zone, Predator, and then like that kind of stuff. Do you remember the movie, like was Predator the movie that really got you like wanting to do effects and stuff like that? Or was there another movie that really like you were watching one day and you're like, what the fuck is that?
Well, I mean, I used to rent. We were like a total like video store family, so every weekend we'd go rent movies, and I'd rent stuff based on boxes and stuff like that, whatever. But I remember when Thriller came out. I was pretty young when Thriller came out for the first time, but every year MTV would do this big Thriller thing. They'd be like, that was like the big deal. Like, we're gonna play the full Thriller video,
Yeah.
uncut, or we'll play the making of Thriller. So when I saw the making of Thriller is when I saw how they did a lot of the shit, and it's actually Rick Baker and John Landis. So they would talk in Making of Thriller about American Werewolf in London, and I was like, "Yo, I have to see this movie. What is that movie?" And
Yeah.
that was my dad was a little, and my mom were both a little like, I don't know about that one. We'll see. But I'd see the box at the movie store, and I'd be like, "Yo, we have to rent this." So eventually I got to rent it, and then when I saw that, I kind of knew how it was being made already by the Making of Thriller, and all that stuff, got put together. I was like, I want to be Rick Baker, I want to try to work with these guys. I want to make werewolves. I just want to, mess people up and do zombies and stuff. So it was kind of the Making of Thriller kind of started it all, because that got me into American Werewolf, which then just like I was sky's the limit at that point. It was just like a floodgates were open.
Hell yeah. No, I definitely the thriller video is one that scared the fucking shit out of me as a kid for sure. It was like as soon as I saw it, I remember running into my mom's room and being like, what the fuck is going on? Because like you don't expect a scary video to be on like in the middle of an MTV run of music videos and stuff. And the next thing you know, there's zombies in your face and you're like 5 years old. And it's like, what the fuck? But
Yeah, dude, even the sound design, right? Like all the zombie sounds and stuff, and then the werewolf sounds, those are from American Werewolf. So
yeah.
you hear those sounds, and that shit kind of hits you like when you were a little kid. It's crazy.
No, that's one of the coolest thing about, just like effects and stuff and like the work that you guys do is like when stuff like that crosses over, like the Easter eggs from Rick Baker using that stuff from Werewolf in the Thriller video. You got the Kyoto brothers using Killer Clown stuff and Ernest Scared Stupid. Like it's just like, people like stuff that always gets that you don't even think about that gets used in other movies and this and that. That I wonder how many, like it would be nice to see somebody like just make like a big documentary about those things, you know what I mean? Because there's always like these lists that get made on like YouTube and stuff, but nobody really covers like the practical effects Easter eggs that cross over between films and stuff like that.
Oh, dude, yeah, that's huge. I mean, you can make a whole documentary about that, like you said. But that's the crazy thing. It's like Making of Thriller was sort of like the beginning of a lot of that stuff, like stuff that was in Fangoria. These kind of behind the scenes stories. Then they had like Movie Magic and like Lights, Camera, Action, and all these shows in the 80s that were showing you what happened behind the scenes with movies. And then the DVD era comes. Even there was some VHS tapes, like Labyrinth had this whole making of Labyrinth at the end of the tape. But
Yeah.
then DVD era comes, you get these behind the scenes featurettes. Then Blu-ray happens and it explodes, right? Like, I mean, Laserdisc is really what kind of led to that. But with Blu-ray, you have all this opportunity to put this shit on there. But now because streaming has become so big, even Blu-rays, you're getting more bare bone stuff. You're not getting all these featurettes anymore. It just sort of like stalled out all of a sudden. And I'm like, that's what people want to see. They want to see the weird connections of like how this was used and how people like cut around stuff. And but I mean, I listened to your episode with Bart Mixon and listen to some of that stuff. It's like that there needs to be a whole documentary about that. That's so
Yeah.
sick.
No, I agree 100%. That stuff is so fun. Like even as latest as Scream, not Scream 6 or whatever, but the one that was just called Scream 5 or whatever. They use like some Freddy, like when the girl, spoiler alert for anybody that hasn't seen it, but I mean, who cares? It's at the end of the movie, the girl gets burned and she has like a burned ear, and they even use Freddy's ear for her ear for like shit like that because it's like a nod to Wes Craven and so it's like little things like that just throughout film history, just especially in horror, is just like super cool. But
Yeah, that's awesome. People don't remember that year either.
yeah,
Even me, like I did a Freddy for Walking Dead, like the last season of Walking Dead. Randomly, like Greg and Cotero was like, "Yo, let's just throw Freddy in there," like
heck
out of
yeah.
nowhere. And I'm like, "All right," like I get to do a Freddy, like I'm down. So as I'm going through all the old pictures, he specifically wanted part one, and
Yeah.
I'm like a part 2 and 3 guy as far as like the look of Freddy, but still, I'm like looking at that first David Miller makeup, and that people don't realize that little burnt ear that's like kind of like half cocked off the side of his head. And I was like, we had to get that on there, so I made sure there was a little messed up ear on there.
Fuck yeah. If I'm not mistaken, you also worked on the Dylan's New Nightmare short as well.
Yeah, I saw on your page that you did like a watch of that. But I didn't watch your watch along. But yeah, I got to work on that, which was nuts. Like that was like the
Fuck yeah.
most fun thing ever. I'll do Freddy any day. I'm a huge Freddy nerd, but that was kind of a fun one because we got to kind of do like a weird redesign.
Yeah.
Try to stay faithful, but did it. Nora Hewitt did that makeup, and she's awesome. And so she hired me just to sculpt it, and I was just pumped to do it. I thought it was great. It was a fun little fan film.
No, I fucking loved it. Especially I'm an Adam Green fan, so like the hatchet nod was cool, and then like I really enjoyed the makeup. Like it was a nice mix between like the first Freddy and then like New Nightmare Freddy as well. Which was the movie was a sequel to, so it makes sense and stuff. So it was a nice like fresh design, but also like a callback in the right spots to like the
Yeah,
Nancy
plus
trilogy.
Nico
So.
Hughes. That's crazy, man. Like that was a huge score, for them. And Cecil Laird, the guy that directed it, awesome dude. Like I thought they did a great job. So I hope they get to do more.
Yeah, no, definitely for sure. It was definitely a strong like showing of something that could be like an actual like full feature for sure. So hopefully they get something going in the future. That's the thing is they're always looking for ways to resurrect Freddy. It's like I think that's one thing I liked about it is that it showed that somebody else could play Freddy if they just like played on the character with respect instead of trying to change it too much and stuff like that. But
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I mean, those things are weird because it's like, Robert Englund is Freddy, right? But obviously he can't do it forever. And if he kind of, is okay with something, kind of passes the torch to somebody, I think Dave McRae would be awesome because he does a great job. And it's the same thing with like that new Hellraiser movie. Of course you want to see, Doug Bradley, but if it's not gonna be Doug, this is a cool option or this is a cool thing. It's like
yeah.
as long as it's something interesting, then I'm down. Like I don't have I'm a purist like for the most part, but I'm not gonna be like militant about it.
Oh yeah. No, I really enjoyed the newest Hellraiser, and I do those monthly roundtable episodes and stuff. Like most of those guys enjoyed it. Well, all of them pretty much enjoyed it. It's just like different levels of enjoyment. You know what I mean? But uh, it was one of those
Yeah.
things that, especially after all those shitty Hellraisers, it was like nice to see just like a nice fresh take, especially something that pays so much respect to the original, but takes it to like a new level for sure. So
Yeah, I got to work on that, and I was pretty pumped about that. I did the Chatterer, so I got to sculpt the
fuck yeah.
Chatterer's head, and that was always my favorite Cenobite. So I was like freaking out about that. Like I was so excited to get that opportunity. It was like Josh and Sierra Russell for Russell Effects, had that gig, and they hit me up and they're like, it's just like simply like, yo, you want to do Chatterer? I'm like, yep. Like that was it. That was our whole conversation. It's awesome.
Fuck yeah. No self promotion. I had Nicholas Vince on the show as well, so that was pretty cool. Like the original Chatter, so that was one of
Yeah,
the
for sure.
cool ones to
That guy,
have.
dude, he's awesome, man. And he was like really into it. Like he got into like writing more about the character later on and like comics and stuff. And I didn't know much about that until I was like really researching him, because I was
Yeah.
into the character. But yeah, that'd be cool, man. I wonder what he thought of that chatter. Did he say anything about that or
I actually had him on before it came out, so it was
oh,
it's been a minute, yeah. But
He's like, it sucks. I hate it.
He was such a positive guy that I'm sure that even if he like shit on it, it would have been like in the most eloquent, because he's very like British. He probably would
Yeah,
have said it in a very like eloquent way. But nice, super cool. But now we mentioned a ton of horror films, and you're like me, it's like you're such a diehard fan that when people say what's some of your favorites, you could go on for hours. But do you have one that really sticks out at the top as like a favorite, and then you have some other ones that are like the ones that you revisit the most, you'd say?
yeah. I liked the '80s mostly. I like late '70s stuff. We mentioned a few of my favorites already. But like everyone accuses me of like not liking new shit. They're like, "Oh, you hate it because it's new." Like, but that's not actually true. Like, I have like a list. And I did this to spite everybody. I'm like, "Yo, here's a list of 35 movies over the last like 5 or 10 years that I loved." But
Yeah,
so as far as new stuff, I did see Thanksgiving the other night as well. And I thought it was cool. I thought he could have pushed it a little harder. And I'm
yeah,
I'm pumped to see if there's like a director's cut in there somewhere because it seems like there could be. But any holiday horror I'm into, and that was fun, and it was chock full like silly Thanksgiving with nods and stuff, turkeys and stupid shit, which was cool, and I like that. So I'm down, with stuff like that. But I just saw Talk to Me, I guess whenever that came out, I got to see that in the theaters. That
yeah.
like kind of blew my mind. It was a really well done horror movie, really scary, creeped me out, and A24 does it pretty well most of the time.
Yeah.
I usually like stuff that they put out, but those makeups were gnarly in Talk to Me. I thought that was great. And then, like you mentioned earlier, When Evil Lurks. So I didn't get to see it in the theater, but I did see it, streaming. And dude, I was like so pumped about that movie. I'm like, this is what I'm looking for. Like, I want to be severely freaked out and grossed out, but like you're taking it real serious. You know what I mean? There was like almost no room for comic relief there, which is fun in some movies, obviously like Thanksgiving, but
Yeah.
that's the kind of movie I like. Like When Evil Lurks, 100%, like 10 out of 10 for me. So stuff like that. But as far as more modern stuff, not necessarily new, but I like Robert Egger. Like I love The Witch. The Witch was the shit. I like everything he does.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, I know you talk about Hereditary a lot on the show. I liked Hereditary, like stuff like that. Like is really cool. I like that moody kind of fucked up horror.
Yeah. No, hell yeah, I definitely agree. It's pretty much if somebody uses the word bleak to describe it, it's right up my alley. It's like
Oh, for sure. Dude, I want all the kids to die. Like I
yeah.
love kids in real life. I don't want a kid to ever even get hurt or fall off a bike in real life. But in movies, you don't let the kids live. Just kill all the kids because that's the whole point, right? Like it's got to be the scariest, most fucked up thing.
Yeah. No, that's like I was listening to shout out to House That Screams podcast. They're on the FE podcast network along with me or whatever, but they do like a big round table. Like every time they do an episode, there's like 6 or 7 people chatting about a movie. And
Yeah.
they pretty much they did Return of the Living Dead Part 2, and they were talking about like they brought up the question about animals getting killed because there's like the animal shelter slaughter scene in that, which is like off screen and it's like just kind of played for goose and that. But so they brought up the question of like, do you kill kids and animals in movies? And they all went around and like, oh no, you should like I can kill kids, but it's got to push the story forward. And I don't really like to kill animals, but if it's necessary, I'm like, kill them all. Fuck it, it's horror. It's like that's the whole point. Is like I want to exist in a different world for a second. Like you can kill whatever. Like of course when you bring up like my personal like I love Cannibal Holocaust. I got the special edition Blu-ray set with the soundtrack behind me somewhere in this like mess of shit, but of course, like bringing up the animal deaths and that's a different story because they're real. But anything that's just fake on screen, yeah, it might like make you cringe. But as long as it's fake, it's who gives a fuck? Like, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah, dude, and I'll go even further with that because I don't want you to kill real animals. You should, I mean, we can. That's what I do for a living, right? We make fake bodies of animals and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, you
yeah,
don't have to do that. But I always defend Cannibal Holocaust because I don't think that was good that they did that. I'm not advocating that kind of behavior or whatever.
yeah,
And they did even more fucked up shit. With some of those poor actresses went through some hell on that. But that movie doesn't get the credit it deserves, I think, because it's not just shock and awe. That is a really well done film, if you ask me. And a lot of that stuff, even though I don't condone that at all, it's like that's what kind of sets up that visceral feel of the movie. Is like those actual deaths of those animals really just like set you in that weird uneasy place. And I think that's why film is art, right? And art is supposed to elicit that emotional response from you. And usually with horror films, it's supposed to elicit like a very visceral, messed up, response. And
Yeah.
that movie does it so well, what I mean? Even people that love it are just like, yeah, but I don't just throw it on, it's like, you got to kind of prepare yourself for a few of those scenes, love
Yeah.
that.
No, and that's one of the cool things about the Blu-ray is it has a cruelty-free version, so I can watch it without the animal deaths if I want to. Which on rewatch, of course, it's easier to watch. It's nice to watch without those, but like I feel like on the first watch, like you said, it kind of drives the story. Like again, I don't condone it at all. I'm not saying that they should have killed those animals, but it's been done. It's in the past. Just when critiquing the movie, it does push the movie forward and like definitely sets up for the what's to come later on. So, but
Yeah, for sure. And like you even said on you guys did that extreme movie episode. You guys talked about how like they ate those animals. Like those like
yeah,
some of the locals were like, they were gonna do that anyway. So why not point a camera at it? I mean, if that's not filmmaking, I don't know what is. It's like if you're gonna see something that's happening in real life, even if it makes like Western people kind of queasy, if you point a camera at that, that's technically what you're supposed to be doing as a filmmaker. So it's pretty. I don't know. I think Ruggero Deodato's probably not the greatest dude in the world. You know what I mean? Like he's done some pretty questionable shit throughout his life. But I mean that as far as a filmmaker, it's pretty ahead of its time, pretty badass.
yeah, no, especially the overall message of like the last line of the movie being like who's the real cannibals or whatever and stuff like that. So, but
Yeah, for sure. If you think about it like that, I mean that's like the message is this kind of progressive message, but it's packaged in this fucked up,
yeah.
experience, Sick.
No, I totally agree. That's why when people are like, "Oh, it's just schlock," I'm like, actually, it's got a really good like story behind it. It's just like you got to find it in that shit. Like it's hard to watch sometimes, but
For sure. And you said it yourself, like, if it pushes the story forward, I don't want anything gratuitous. I really like Doctor Sleep. I don't know, if I don't know if everyone liked Doctor Sleep. I thought it was pretty cool though. And there's a scene in that movie where those like kind of psychic vampires, whatever the hell they are
yeah,
like kind of closing in on that little kid, the little baseball kid. Dude, that scene messes me up. And it's not gory or anything. It's like fairly tame as far as what's literally on screen, but what's
yeah,
happening, and that's why like Mike Flanagan is a great filmmaker because he's able to kind of get that response from you like this is really, you're not supposed to be seeing this as a kid like losing his life, like right, is horror, like pure horror, but he does it in such a cool way that it's like, I mean, you could run this on network TV, and that's pretty slick.
yeah. No, I agree 100%. That's one of the best scenes of the film because it's like his act and the kid. I think it's Jacob Tremblay that plays him or whatever. He just acts the shit out of that scene. So like his like cries for help are so brutal. It's like it really pulls you into that scene. And but that's the thing is like Mike Flanagan is like I feel like he's a modern master of horror. Like he's done great things with horror so far. And then of course he's like that one was based on the master, like one of the masters with Stephen King and stuff. And um one of my favorites that I just rewatched recently, which is not even horror, but kind of pulls on those same strings, is Hearts in Atlantis. I don't know if you've ever seen that one, but there's a scene in that.
Wow.
There's a scene where like a little girl gets bullied and her arm gets broken, and it's like just like super wild. Like how brutal they like. The bullying goes as far as a girl getting her arm broken by these like older boys. It's like that's the type of shit that like really happens out there in the world, and it's like fucking wild and stuff. But a lot of times they leave out of the movies because it's too harsh for reality. But like Stephen King puts it in his books, and a lot of the better adaptations of his films like put that kind of stuff in the films for that reason because they know that it really will pull you into like the emotion that those kids are feeling, because it's one thing if somebody's just like, oh, you little bitch, you know what I mean? Like that's like they're bullying, like, oh, you're a c word, you're a cunt or whatever, you know what I mean? It's like this
Yeah,
like that's harsh words, but it's like sticks and stones type shit, you know what I mean? But when they fucking go as
yeah.
far as pushing a girl and breaking her arm, because they're being complete dicks, or like in it when they cut their belly open, you know what I mean? Of the chubby kid, or the so-called chubby kid or whatever. I was chubby, so I feel like I'm okay. I feel like it's one of those like I'm allowed to say chubby. It's not fat shaming if you're fat.
Dude, me too. I'm chuffed out, but I've punched a few people, so I'll punch somebody, but I'm still chubby. So you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, no,
getting bullied. No, no,
chubby with some solidness behind the chub. If that makes sense.
dude, it's crazy because it's really like you're exploring the darkest part of a human being. You know what I mean? Like, and that's where it starts. Like, bullying can go from like ah yeah, kids do that shit, to like the most dark shit, and the kids might not even know, the consequences of something like evil that they did. And if you're not going there in your horror movie, what exactly are you trying to show me? You know what I mean? Like I want to see like the darkest part of a person, and it gets you to that place where like I'm actually scared of this character, like you got to do it.
Yeah. No, hell yeah. That's why, like I said, that's what makes those like the better ones of the adaptations, the ones that are actually willing to push to those moments that he writes and stuff like that, for sure. Of course there's other people that do it, but it's just, there's a lot of examples in King's work for sure. But you mentioned a bunch of like recent stuff that you enjoyed, but you also worked on one of the last year's highest grossing horror films with Smile, which I unfortunately didn't see it till after making my top 10 list, or else it definitely would have been in my top 10 horror films of the year. What was it like, working on something and watching it blow up like that? Because if I'm not mistaken, it was originally supposed to go to streaming, or something like that.
Yeah, dude, that's what's crazy about it is I was as surprised as anyone else because I didn't know anything about the project. Like that was like a cool gig. The guys from ADI, Alec Gillis hit me up and was like, hey, do you want to come sculpt on this thing? And I didn't know what it was. I just was like, yeah, I'll take an extra little gig on the side. Like we're always constantly hustling out here, so I'll work nights and stuff. Sometimes I have like 2 or 3 gigs going on at the same time. So this was like a really quick night gig, and I'd leave K&B during the day and then go over to ADI at night. And then some of my friends that were there, my buddy Davis Fandino and Peter Murphy, and a bunch of different people that I love working with, were there. So I'm like, all right, I get an opportunity to hang with these guys, to sculpt this monster. It is what it is. And they gave me this cool design, and I still can't remember the name of the designer. And a lot of people, I keep asking everybody, and nobody can tell me what this guy's name is. But the design was so cool, and I was like, this is going to be awesome. I don't know what it is. Nobody knew anything. The only thing we knew is Kevin Bacon's daughter was in the movie, and I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So then we just go to work. We're just having fun and screwing around, and obviously I'm showing Tom and Alec the sculpture, and then they're showing that to production, and then notes come back and forth, and you just keep tweaking on it. And then it was done, and I was like, all right, cool. Next gig, and I go on to the next thing. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this movie's coming out. And it was called something different when it was like a working title. And then all of a sudden I found out that this Smile thing that I kept seeing, like all this crazy promotion going on,
Yeah.
was that movie that I worked. I'm like, oh, wait, that's that thing. Okay, cool. And then you don't know where your sculpture is going to pop up in the movie. I have no idea. So it got so much hype because they were doing those crazy promotions where they're going to like sporting events and people were just creepy Smiles sitting there. Like, you know what I mean? It was like the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
So when it finally came out, everyone was like, "You got to see it, you got to see it." I finally watched it, and I had no idea that the monster I sculpted was like kind of the climax of the movie, like at the end. Like, and I was like, "Dude, that's crazy!" I was so pumped about that, and I thought it was a really great movie. So it was like, this is it's kind of weird because I work in this stuff and I work on so many movies and TV shows, but it's really rare when you do something where you're like, dude, I actually like this movie. Like I would have watched this movie either way and I've been into it, and the fact that I got to work on it just makes it even cooler, So I was pumped.
Oh yeah. No, I agree 100% with pretty much what you were saying, and to kind of like compare it to something on just a smaller scale for like maybe people listening that can relate. It's like when you're like younger, like I play, like I said, I play guitar in a band and stuff. Like when you're trying to just find people to play with, you play like whatever, you jump at whatever bands you can find and stuff until you finally get into one with some people that are actually good musicians and make good music that you're like, I fuck with this, like this is good. Like to where like 10 years later you still will throw on a record and listen to it again that you created and stuff. So it's like I agree. I agree 100% and definitely know like that feeling where it's like you hit something, you're like, damn, like I'm proud of this, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh, for sure. I played in a few bands, when I was younger, and like nothing that nobody ever heard or anything, but you know that feeling when like you get on stage and like you're playing and people are actually digging it. It might even not be a lot of people, but you're just like, dude, this is it right here. This feeling is so awesome.
yeah.
When you see your shit in a movie, or sometimes you see your name in the credits, rarely, but every once in a while you see that, you get that same exact feeling with no of the camaraderie, like none of the camaraderie. Like you just go, hell yeah. And then you look around, you're like, oh, I'm by myself watching this movie and whatever. Like, so it's kind of like, it's similar, but it's not as cool. Like, that's why being in a band and playing music is always like the coolest. That's the best feeling you could get,
Yeah. No, and that was one of the things when I went into Smile, I was a little bit under like not, I was about to say underwhelmed because that's not true. I was actually like really excited. I think I went in like expecting to think it was like kind of mid, and but it was because like a lot of my buddies were like, it's good, but like they didn't like love it as much and stuff because that's not their like shtick as much as the supernatural stuff. So like when I went and saw it, I was expecting kind of like a like, oh, this is gonna be like a knockoff of The Ring and this and that and stuff. And then when I get like once you start seeing that there's gore in there that's not in those types of movies and stuff like that, I was like, oh shit. And then like your creature at the end to me is what sets exactly that film apart from other stuff, is that fucking like giant thing that crawls out at the end and like crawls into her mouth. It's fucking wild as like the whole ending to me is like what sets that film apart from like anything that it gets compared to, you know what I mean, as far as those like supernatural like curse movies, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I was really surprised, honestly. And it's funny because when I was watching the beginning of the movie, I was like, this is really corny. Like even the way everyone's playing it seems like goofy, and I was like, what? I'm like, is this like just not well made or what's happening? But then the whole tone of the movie starts to shift in the middle and gets darker and darker, and all of a sudden you start to realize how like well acted it is later in the movie. And I realized I'm like, I think they did that purposely. Like they did that to kind of like disarm you in the beginning of the movie. Like it's a sort of a little cheese ball, and then it just goes real dark, and then just like really tanks at the end, which is cool. I thought it was really well done. So, and I can't believe it made that much money. Like that's
Yeah.
nuts. Anytime an independent thing like blows up like that, I'm pumped because this is going to mean there's more of that stuff that happens, and that's what I want to work on. I want to work on cool underground horror shit where you don't have studio involvement and all that.
Yeah. No, and I agree 100%. I know exactly what you mean. There was like like one thing that like kind of bothered me early on in the movie that I felt like you said went away later on is stuff is there's a line where she keeps breaking glasses and the guy's like, "Oh, did you break a glass again?" And it's like there was like humor like there was a sprinkle of camp throughout and stuff like that, or where she kept doing these things, and then like the cop at the very beginning was like when he was investigating her about the girl that killed herself at the very beginning of the movie, he was like, "Oh, was she really fucked up then?" Or like he pretty much called her like said that she was fucked up or whatever. And I'm like, a cop would never say that in front of a psychiatrist. So I was like, so there was things like that. But like I'm with you. It's like by about 30 about the scene where I feel like she's on the phone and the scare happens where uh like she thinks she's on the phone with security and she's really not. It's like, the thing fucking with her. I think that about that scare going forward is when I feel like the tone just shifts into truly like being scary and like creepy as fuck for the rest of the time. But that's when I feel like it shifts into very like Naomi Watts like doing her research in The Ring and stuff like that. That's why I feel like it gets compared to The Ring and stuff. But like I said, I feel like the ending is what sets it apart because it becomes like a full on like creature thing that like most of those films don't reach, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that. And I like that about The Ring too. I like that supernatural element where it's just like it could be a who done it, and we're trying to figure all this stuff out, and it's kind of like got a mystery vibe to it. But then it's like, oh no, this is actual evil, or this is something that's dead that's coming back, or this is something from another world. That's my favorite stuff. I feel like I like that kind of thrillery horror stuff where it's like how scary can humans be, but when it has that element that's like, oh, this is real evil, like that's awesome. That to me that's what real horror should be. I want to see monsters and weird shit in people's faces turn into shit. I love that
Yeah.
stuff.
No, hell yeah. No, I agree 100%. And pretty much I have one last question before I go into like I have a hypothetical question for you and then I'll ask you about the horror story that I ask all my guests and stuff. And I didn't want to say this one for last because I don't want to say it's a downer because it might be a downer. I don't know, depending on how you look at it. But if I'm not mistaken, you worked on the Thing prequel, which you guys
Yeah.
put in a fuckload of hard work and which has been leaked in footage, now and stuff like that. Do you remember the first time that you saw that they like, plastered CGI all over it, like just kind of how the crew reacted overall?
Well, what's weird is like kind of from the inside of the whole thing, it wasn't as much of a surprise to us as it seemed on the outside because
Okay.
that the visual effects like end of that movie was heavy from the beginning. I remember some of the earliest meetings they had like visual effects people there really early on, so we knew there was going to be an element of that. And I remember they kept cutting our stuff back and back, and we'd be like, all right, we're making this thing, but now it's like this and it's this, and it's like it got smaller and smaller, so you knew there would always be like a visual effects element to it. The one thing that really like bummed us out was there was an entire creature that was just like subtracted from the movie. Like
Yeah.
they shot the whole thing. It was this whole like specific ending with this crazy alien creature. and we were really excited about this puppet, and you know, it was really really awesome. And they wound up going a completely different direction after they had tested some of the stuff, and then cutting that whole like kind of like subplot out of the movie, and now it was a completely different ending with this huge completely CG character. And that's the part that was really the most like kind of bummer for us, because there was way more CG than we thought, and you know, a lot of our stuff got covered up, but mostly the stuff that got completely thrown on the floor, like in the trash, basically was the real bummer. And honestly, I just thought that movie sucked. Like that, I don't really care. Like at the end of the day, you know, it's a bummer because our stuff does get like it does, you know, end up on the cutting room floor a lot, but at least if the movie is good, you go, okay, I was part of a cool movie. I thought that movie was kind of, a bummer just as a movie. Like I thought it kind of undid all the rules that like John Carpenter set up in his movie, and
Yeah.
you know, it didn't really make a ton of sense, and it was kind of just a poor homage, because I love John Carpenter's The Thing, one of the greatest movies of all time. It's like kind of a bummer to not give it its due with a prequel, which I don't think is a bad idea. Like if you told me I'm doing a prequel about the Norwegians, I'm like, awesome, like let's see that. And they just sort of shit the bed on the whole thing. What's crazy too is they just released this like big deal Blu-ray of that. It was like a Walmart exclusive. So stupid, right? So I run out and I get it. I'm like, finally, vindication. They will show us the deleted scene that they took out, or show our puppet. So I
Yeah.
pop it in, I go through the deleted scenes. It's not in there. They haven't shown it. And if you look at the making of stuff, you see that puppet. You see them working with it on set and stuff like that, because they shot the whole ending. But for some reason, they didn't put that deleted scene. I think someone got in trouble, so they're like, "We're just going to erase this completely." And
Yeah.
that's the biggest bummer, that no one will ever see that. You know?
Yeah. It's probably they're scared that people will call for like a director's cut if they do, and then they'll have to actually like put more money back into that film to like, or like not that they will, but then they'll have just the hassle of like the call for it or whatever. But
Yeah, man. I don't know. It's hopefully someday it'll surface. I mean, it would be stupid not to, because it's like you could sell a whole release on that, like the deleted scene that no one's ever seen. You know?
yeah.
But
No, I agree
so
100% for sure. Never seen footage, with practical effects, especially with the way the practical effects are like Thanksgiving, he sprinkled a visual effects where he needed to, but mostly practical, luckily. So,
I was listening to your show just the other day, with that dude that was in Nora and stuff, and Swashbuckle.
yeah.
I forget the guy's name, but every time I talk about this stuff, it's the same thing. People want to see practical effects. They want to see rubber. They want to see puppets. Like they
Yeah.
love shit like that. I mean, that's the whole community. I don't know anyone that's out there being like, I want more CG. I hate these practical puppets. It makes me feel like I'm watching something in the 80s. It's like that's what people want. So why are you not giving that shit to them, you know?
Yeah. The only time I don't mind like a CG thing is like a CG bear when it's done right, because it's like, why bring an animal like that can harm a person and also put them in a way to where if they act out at all, that you got to tranquilize, you know what I mean? Like, because you can make
Yeah.
a unless it's like a dead bear, you can puppet that shit, but or make a puppet bear or whatever, that's cool too. But I just mean as far as I guess, yeah, you can always just make a puppet bear, but I just mean if it's something quick, I don't mind like a CG animal or something just to make it happen real quick. But as far as like when it comes to stuff that like is actual like cool kills and like viscera and stuff, the more practical the better for sure.
Yeah, and those people need jobs too, right? And there's some great visual effects artists out there, and there's stuff that I love in film, and when it calls for that, you need it, but you need to have the balance there, right? And that's what I think is important.
Yeah.
And I think Hollywood especially just leans too heavy on that shit.
Yeah. And I guess the reason a bear popped in my head is because I really liked the CGI bear and prey. People were hating on it, but I was like, I thought it looked pretty good. But
No, that CG was actually pretty sick, and that scene was nuts, and you could never make that happen on screen with even if you had a real bear. My problem though is like I feel like you use the real bear as much as you possibly can, and you use clever filmmaking techniques around it with the CG and just different tools. Because if it's just completely CG, even when it doesn't have to be, it's like there's just something there that you never have that anchor point where you're like, this is real. Even
yeah.
if you see a real bear for a split second, your brain, whether you like it or not, is like, oh, that's a real bear. And then the next scene, it's like, oh, it might be a fake bear, but you're still in that real world. If you never see the real bear at all, It's kind of like, remember that movie The Reef? It came out maybe 2005 or something like that, 2003, 2004. I don't remember, but it was an Australian like shark movie, right?
Yeah.
Where these people, they you've probably seen it, but what they did was they comped in actual footage of great whites, but they did it digitally so well that it was so close to the actor that they're shooting completely in a different, like on a different plate, that it looks like they're interacting. And you know that the actor's not in there with the shark, but you also know that that's a real shark. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they did it so well, they spliced it, and that's still a visual effect. They had to do that with the computer, but they didn't just build a computer shark. You know, it's like that's what real filmmaking should be about, is like the clever tricks to mess you up as the audience member. Like, I'm not really sure what the fuck I just saw. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. There's a couple movies that do well, honestly, I hate to say it, but the one that's behind you, I think they do a better job of it than some of the newer ones. Is Zombie, the way that fucking real shark, like with the fucking the zombie fighting the shark, that shit looks so real. It's nuts. It's fucking, and that's from the 70s.
Well, that's what's so crazy, because it's just real. Like, that's what's funny about the Italians back then. They were just like, throw a shark in there with the zombie, whatever. It's I love
If he
that.
dies, he dies.
And I don't care if you think that's the stupidest movie you've ever seen. If you pause any point of that scene, zombie versus shark, I don't care. Just hit pause a bunch of times. That is like a key frame that would blow your mind if you just saw this. If I just pulled out a lobby card and it's got a tiger shark coming in, and a dude in full zombie makeup backing up with like the floor of an ocean, it's like, what am I looking at right here? That is amazing. I mean, that's what real filmmaking should be about, right? It's like, look at these images. Like, is this insane what you're watching right now? And then he starts biting the shark. He sticks his fake arm into the actual shark's mouth, and then the shark rips his arm. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I love zombie. One of my favorite, one of the underrated lines of that entire movie is at the beginning, where he's like, "Whoever's man in that vessel is a real turkey." When they're like flying over her dad's like abandoned boat. I was like,
Yeah.
whoever like did the translation fucked something up there, because I'm pretty sure nobody was calling anybody a turkey over in Europe.
Oh yeah, I love that though. I love little things like that. Like, there's a line where the one doctor says like, voodoo never solved anything. It's like, what the fuck is that? Are you actually saying that? Like, it's like, oh, voodoo, that's silly. Like, I just love that line. It's so funny. Stupid shit.
Oh yeah. I did want to ask before I ask my hypothetical question and like the horror question one. Do you ever watch Dead Meat on YouTube or anything like that? The kill counts?
Yeah, I have actually. I just watched the one for the Dylan's Doom Nightmare that I was kind of pumped about too. But yeah, I like that show a lot. It's cool. It's so smart too. It's like, kill count is like, that's genius.
Yeah, no, I've been into him for a while, and like that's what I was when you were talking about The Thing not being that good. I was like, I was gonna say I didn't ever actually watch it. I skipped it because I was like, who wants to see that? Like, once I found out what it was, like, because the reviews came in at that point, so I just watched his kill count of it instead of actually watching it. But
Dude,
no,
it's not worth it. I would never say this for even the worst movies ever. I would never be like, yeah, dude, you don't need to watch it. You literally do not need to watch that movie.
yeah.
It's that bad. It's so sad that I had to say that, but it's true. It's like, it's that fucking bad.
Well, it's like if they would have left like more practical effects in it, would have at least had something like fun. Like, that's my thing, is like there's certain movies like in the 80s that are bad, but their practical effects make them worth watching 100 times over. So it's like, is at least that they would have had that going for it, have been cool. But the fact that they just peppered that shit with VFX too just kind of ruined it. But no, that's why I asked, is the Dylan's New Nightmares, because he shouted you out, for doing the smile creature and some other stuff that you worked on as well. So
Yeah, that was so cool, man. Anytime anybody does that, I'm like, oh, dude, that means a lot, because that's why I love this stuff. You know what I mean? I want to watch, YouTube about other people's work and stuff like that, and when people get shout out, that's how I learn stuff about this stuff. I'm like, oh, hell yeah,
yeah.
or being in one of those magazines, like being in Fangoria or something like that. Like, anytime, my name even gets mentioned, I'm like, dude, that rules. That's so huge.
Oh yeah. No, I thought that was super cool. I was like, fuck yeah, go Mikey. That's super dope. But
Shit.
so very much my next my hypothetical question I came up with for you and stuff is just to kind of mix, I usually mix the music and movies, but because you do the sculpting and the effects, I wanted to ask if you've worked on IPs before, from Creepshow to the one we were just chatting about with The Thing. If you could work on any major horror IP, whether it's a remake of something that you love, or the next installment of a Predator or Nightmare on Elm Street type movie, what would be your dream job as far as something like that goes, a pre-existing IP?
Well, that's a hard one, man, because I've worked on a few that would have been a dream for me 10 years before I worked on it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then when you work on it, you're kind of like, oh, whatever, dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like that was this or that was whatever. Um, I'm trying to think like what would be the big one. Damn, dude. This isn't horror at all, so this is kind of cheesy, but I would love to work on a Ninja Turtle movie. Like I
Fuck
like
yeah.
if they did like a legit ass Ninja Turtle movie like the one in the 90s, like that's like super dark with full suits. I think that those suits are awesome, but like we could update so much to make them like really work well and like, have like full on stunt badass martial art dudes in there, like just kicking ass in these like muscular, like cool suits, have them all really look different and stuff like that. That would be pretty sick. But
Oh,
I
yeah.
guess with horror, I don't know. It'd be cool to do maybe like a new Salem's Lot or something like that. Like just some cool like kind of reinvent that Barlow vampire or something. I don't know.
Fuck yeah. No, those are both great answers. And the cool thing with how you can always do like Tarantino's turtles. That way they're super gory and fucking bloody as shit. It's
100%. One, I mean that I think that's another thing fans would love to see because going back to the original comics, they were pretty nuts. They're like decapitating dudes, like
yeah.
and crazy shit. So it's like a Kill Bill Turtles movie that's like real dark. Like if like that new Batman was like kind of like that '90s Alex Proyas, The Crow style dark.
Yeah.
Do that with Ninja Turtles because even the 90s one was like that. It was just like a little more tame to get that PG rating, But if you went like full rated R with that same vibe and crazy turtle suits, I mean, crazy. That would be people would go nuts.
Yeah. What's that storyline going around now? The Last Ronin, I think is what they're calling it, where it's like one of them's
Oh,
like left
dude.
alive or whatever.
Yeah, great. I read it. It's awesome, and they should just make a movie out of it right now. Like I don't know why they don't. I mean, it's kind of insane, but yeah, and that's the one thing. Like every time another one of these animated turtles movies comes out, I'm just like, are you even looking at these message boards? Like, do you even know what people want to see? They want to see practical turtle suits.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I loved this most recent animated one. I thought it was hilarious and stuff like that. But and it was cool to see them implement a lot more of the other like creature cast. Not just the turtles. But I would love to see like that's one thing that's nice about it is you got this for the families. Give us a live action one for the adults and like stuff like that. So you still keep them separate. Same thing with like Adam's Family. You got the Adam's Family movies, but then you got Wednesday on Netflix, which has got fucking blood and gore and stuff in it, and done by
Yeah,
Tim
yeah.
Burton. So
I haven't seen that new Ninja Turtles one, but I wanted to, and I like the trailer a lot. But that's another thing. Like even the Michael Bay ones, like I'm just down to see Ninja Turtles. Like whenever
yeah,
they're on, I'm like this is cool, even if it sucks. I don't care. This is fun. It's the same thing with like those Planet of the Apes movies. Like anytime, or the King Kongs or Godzilla's. Like anytime there's a crazy chimpanzee like fight or Godzilla versus Kong or whatever. I'm like, I mean, I'm kind of into it anyway, even if it sucks.
yeah. That's Mutant Mayhem. I put it on for my son, and he wasn't getting into it because he's only 3 and stuff. So I was like, and I was getting so into it. So I was like, you're annoying me, kid. I'm gonna turn this off and watch it later. Like he wasn't really annoying me. What I was like, I'm trying to watch this shit. I was like, it's good. So I definitely recommend checking it out when you get a chance. It's hilarious. It's got it's done by Seth Rogen and them, so it's super funny. And the kids that do the voices are actual teenagers, and they're like rips on each other, like sound so genuine. It's like that's what makes it so funny and stuff like that. So.
See, I did hear that they were actual teenagers, which I love. I think that's a great idea, and all the voice cast sounds awesome. So I'm gonna check it out for sure.
Yeah, and it takes a while to get to that first fight scene, but once it shows up, it's worth it. It's like, I don't know, it's choreographed nice for animation. You know what I mean? So, but
That's cool. That's cool.
oh yeah, but pretty much, my last question, and again, like you have so much work so much stuff that you've worked on in the past that I definitely, I could have you on again and we could go through some more stuff. Like I'm a big fan of that series Them. I saw you worked on that, and then so you got your start, like if I'm not mistaken, on one of your first movies was Dogma that you helped out on. which
Oh yeah, dude, I was in high school when I worked on that, so that was pretty sick.
fuck yeah, no, I love it. What's funny is my actual little bit of parallel here. My first ever interview. I remember I mentioned doing that podcast back in 2019 or whatever. My first ever interview was Jason Mewes, and it was literally I didn't have like any interview like experience or anything like that. I was just going to a convention, and at the time the podcast was like I did like 3 episodes where I was reviewing movies with a buddy, and that was supposed to be the podcast. But I was like, hey, I'm going to a convention. Let me try to get somebody on the show. And Jason Mewes was the only guy there that was like somebody I was a big fan of, and I was like, he's at least in Scream 3, so it's somewhat horror related. So I reached out and he said yes. So I was like, honestly, if he never said yes, I probably wouldn't be interviewing people because it's like I just never had an experience. But he said yes. I was like, fuck it, and I did a little 15-minute in-person interview. So
That's awesome, man. And that sets the bar like pretty high, honestly. I mean, it's like, oh, my first ever interview with Jason Mewes, no big deal. You know what I mean? I'm like, that's huge, man. That's awesome. It's like downhill from there. Then it's like, oh, now it's Mikey Rotella. This guy's like whatever. Like, no. But I love him, man. Going back to Clerks, like Jay and Silent Bob, like those characters were awesome. I mean, I just and especially Jason Mewes because he's so real. That's a real dude. I know like 10 dudes like that, especially being from New Jersey. It's like I know
yeah.
that guy. It's so funny.
No, fuck yeah. And then, of course, what's another funny connection, my second interview ever was Harry Manfredini, and it was in person. So it was like another, I know that you had a, like you said, your dad sung on the
Dude,
record and stuff.
another Jersey boy. There you go. That's hilarious.
Yeah, no, he was in town. It was like back-to-back weekends where I went to a convention with plans to go, got the interview with Jason Mewes, and because I got that one, I knew of another convention the next weekend, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna reach out, and if I get interviews, I'll go. And Harry Manfredini was like, yeah, I'll interview you. So I went just to like get his autograph and do an interview with him. Pretty much, I didn't like spend a bunch of money like I would have if I was going to a con. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So, but
That's cool, man. He's the nicest dude, man. I love that guy. Dude, he knew me before I knew him because I was a baby when he was like working with my dad. You know what I mean? So it's the
yeah,
craziest thing. So now I see him at conventions and he's always says what's up. One time, my dad and my uncle Jules they work together to do music. You know, still. And Harry was producing one of their albums, so they came out and we all went to Harry's house and he had his whole like recording set up and we're sitting there and they're playing my dad's stuff and going back and forth and talking like business. And then he goes, okay, now you guys want to see something cool? And he like switches over to what he's working on, like on the side there. And he was doing all the score stuff for the Friday the 13th game. And I was like freaking out. And there he is, he's like playing it for us. We got this cool like preview before the game came out. It was awesome.
that rules. That's super awesome. Yeah, he was one of the nicest dudes, that's for sure. And one of the things is even though he did Friday, which is one of the biggest horror movies ever, and I got married on Friday the 13th. Go see it in theaters every chance I get, so it's like big for me. But I love House, and My Boyfriend's Back was one of my favorite movies growing up. So like,
Oh,
it was
dude.
nice to program about all that stuff that he worked on. That was not just Friday the 13th, but he's done a lot of great shit. So
Oh yeah, man. Swamp Thing, Deep Star Six, like he's got a couple hitters on there. Like he's a
yeah,
badass, man.
yeah. I always forget about D Star 6. I asked him about that when we were doing it, just because that was like I think Sean Cunningham as well. So I was asking him, about like working with the same people over and over again and stuff like that. So
Yeah, that's cool, dude. I swear to God, if I made a horror movie right now, I would try to get Harry. You know what I mean? Like that would be so sick.
no, I think 100%. Yeah, I definitely agree for sure. He did Hanukkah, which was like Sid Haig's last movie, and it's not a great movie, but his score for it was fucking killer. That's for sure. So
Yeah, that's another one I never saw, man. Like I heard about it, and obviously, like I love Sid Haig, so it's like, damn, I can't believe I've never seen that movie. But I gotta this holiday season, I'm gonna hit that up for sure.
yeah, oh yeah. No, and then of course my last question, like I said, I like to ask all my guests, and um, like you mentioned you listen to the show, so I know you know pretty much what it is. But it's do you have a horror story of your own? It could be from a day gone wrong on set, or just something scary shit that happened to you in your personal life. And if you believe in paranormal, you're more welcome to share that kind of story as well.
Well, it's funny, and I've heard you ask other people this, and I sometimes I'm like, man, well, I wonder what I would even say because I have a couple weird stories, but I don't believe in ghosts or anything like that, which is kind of weird. And people always like, fuck with me. They're like, really? Do you don't believe in any shit? I'm like, no, I just don't buy. And I don't believe in Bigfoot. I don't believe in aliens. I don't believe in ghosts. It's just kind of thing. And my wife is obsessed with the paranormal. Like she loves that shit, and she has all these ghost stories and stuff. And she like loves ghost adventures. That's her favorite thing, right?
Yeah, that's
So
my wife too, but she hates horror movies, but she'll watch Ghost Adventures. Like we watched that girl Selena Spooky Boo on YouTube because she goes to ghost hunt. You know that sleepwalking girl that was farting in her sleep and stuff like that.
it's so good. Yeah, she's obsessed with all that stuff, and she really believes in ghosts, and we always get in arguments and stuff, and back and forth. But she loves Zach Baggins, right? And so his museum in Vegas. I don't know if you've ever been there, but I don't believe in any of this shit, and that is probably one of the coolest places I've ever been. That museum is amazing, right?
Oh
They
yeah,
took an old like Masonic temple that like used to be overrun by Satanists, and he gutted the whole thing and just put his whole collection in there, right? So haunted dolls, the Dybbuk box, all that stuff. It's like he has Jack Kevorkian's van in there, like his actual van, like
yeah.
all this murderabilia and crazy shit. So
Doesn't he
anyway,
have the does he still have the bed from where I think it's Lamar Odom from
yep,
the yeah, the guy
yep, he
with the
has
Bunny
that
Ranch
bed.
died too. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, he basically like recreated that whole room from the Bunny Ranch, like in his house, in the fucking the museum,
Yeah.
which is insane. And they disassembled Jack of Oregon's van and put that together back in the house. It's like on the second floor. It's absolutely nuts. He has like original art from Manson and like Ted Bundy's original like murder kit. Like he had like a duffel bag where he had like a ski mask and like zip ties or some shit. I don't know. It's insane. So
Yeah.
the museum's amazing, right? But I don't get afraid about that stuff. Like I think it's cool and I like it, but I'm not like, ooh, I feel something. So we did this tour there. You could do a flashlight tour, right? You go in at night and it's like 10:30 at night. It's pitch black and they shut all the electricity off in the whole museum and they give you a flashlight. So you just walk around with these flashlights, and me and my wife are just walking around, and we've been there a bunch of times, so we kind of know the layout. We're doing our whole thing. And my wife, they'll give you like all these little like paranormal investigation things or whatever, like EVPs or whatever the hell they're called,
Yeah.
and so PKE meters or whatever the fuck, what I mean, photon packs, I don't know. But so they give my wife this little box, and and my wife's name is Fatima, and she's like looking around and like quizzing the ghosts and stuff like that, and she's getting all these readings, and she's like flipping out, and it's pretty cool, the whole time. But I'm like, I don't buy it. It's like static electricity or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
So they have a basement room. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but they have a basement room where they literally had satanic rituals down there, supposedly, like in the 60s or some shit. So
Yeah.
that's like optional. You don't have to go down there because it's super scary. And it's like, go down at your own risk, right? So I'm like, fuck that. I'm going. And I went, and this was the night before Halloween, right? So it's the night before Halloween. We're at the scariest fucking museum in the world, right? And I go down there, and it's like right after midnight. So it's like midnight the night before Halloween. I go to the Satan fucking dungeon in Zach Baggins' haunted museum by myself in the pitch black. And the only electricity they have in the whole building is they're playing a loop of this like crazy Aleister Crowley like prayer to the devil, basically, right? So I'm in this basement where they had legit, like supposedly satanic sacrifices. There's Aleister Crowley playing on a loop. It's pitch black. It's Halloween at around midnight, and nothing happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what I'm talking about. It's like, it was cool as shit. It was the most fun night. I love Halloween and I love all this crazy shit. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, I'm like, if it's not gonna happen that night in that place in the pitch black by myself, I'm like, it's probably not true. So we could just have fun with it, right? We just had a good time.
Yeah, no, no, exactly what you mean. It's like you can't set yourself, and especially when people like all like the true believers always say the line that the more you open yourself up to it, the more susceptible you are to readings and stuff. It's like I couldn't open myself up more if I'm in the middle of a fucking satanic fucking ritual spot on Devil's Night and
Dude,
fucking
straight up. I mean, that's like, and there I am. I'm like, well, let's see what's up. What do you got? And it's like, you got nothing.
with
But
all
it's
these
still
haunted
fun.
things around me. Yeah,
Dude, in that basement, they have Oddfellows skeletons. So the Oddfellows Club would like dig up skeletons and they'd scry into the bones. They'd like look into the skeleton's eyes to like see the other world, whatever the fuck it is. I mean, they're there in the room with me, and it's like still nothing's happening. I'm like, shit, I'm just gonna go eat candy corn and listen to shitty music,
yeah. No, I don't blame you. It's like you said, it's almost like at that point you start playing flashlight tag with Robert the Doll and just fucking saying, I hope shit doesn't go too wrong.
Dude, seriously, I mean, it was still fun as hell, and I
Yeah.
seriously recommend that place too, especially if your wife's into it. You got to check that out someday. But yeah, I mean, I just don't buy it, you know.
Now that they got the punk rock museum out in Vegas, I kind of want to make a trip and hit both of those two. Those are like the two things I would like to go for. And this, the Sphere just looks fucking cool. I don't care. I know it's like a uh online thing, but would just like to check out somebody inside the Sphere. It looks wild. Have you seen the videos of that?
Yeah, I've seen it even from the outside. It was nuts. I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Vegas is always cool, man. There's always something cool to do there. They have the mob museum there too, which is pretty nuts. It's like the
Oh fuck
old
yeah.
courthouse, and they turned it into this weird mob museum. So you learn about like how like organized crime got started in Vegas and all over the country. It's pretty awesome, man. It's a great city, you know. I don't gamble or drink or anything. I'm like kind of boring, but I'll go there and go to museums and shit.
Oh yeah, no, it's super fun. And then of course, that's one thing that's fun about it is like if you don't drink and you go with people that do drink, it's like you're not stuck waiting for them because you could drink on like while walking around there and stuff and not have to worry about it. You know what I mean? As much as somewhere else where you got to like stay at a bar and drink and then go somewhere. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, yeah, you could be on the move and still see cool shit. So.
yeah, hell yeah. Well, no, man, it was a blast chatting with you. I was stoked to finally get you on, and like I said, I'm definitely down to have you back on in the future. Whether you join one of our monthly episodes or we just do another part two where we go through some more of your stuff as well as some more horror movies and stuff. But
Dude, anytime, man. It's a blast talking to you. You're awesome, dude. I love your show. Keep it up. Keep doing it. You know what I mean? And I know you're gonna take your hiatus. I'm glad you're not, but take care of yourself and the fam and just do your thing. But we need you, man. You're fucking awesome.
hell yeah, man, I really appreciate that for sure. It's like definitely nice to when people actually like when I get told somebody actually listens to the show, like they make comments about stuff that's said and stuff because sometimes you see like listeners and stuff like on the the count that they give you and stuff and that like it drops and goes up and down and stuff like that, but some people like all the stuff that you post, but it's like if people don't share it or like do stuff like that, sometimes you wonder if they're actually listening or if they're just following like, and I'm not saying like you, because obviously like honestly I expect most of the people that come on as guests to not be listeners, just kind of be people in the business that are like interested in talking about the business. And but there's some people that like obviously like all my stuff that I'm like I always wonder if they actually listen. So whenever there's like confirmation of that stuff, it makes me feel a little bit better about doing all the hard work and stuff that goes into doing stuff like this. So
Yeah, man. Well, I love horror, so I listen to whatever horror, but I also love hardcore and metal and stuff. So that's why it's cool, to listen to your show specifically. And
oh yeah.
it's cool just because you're awesome and you're like a real dude. And that's the cool thing about the stuff. Like you're just being you and doing your thing, and that's I think that resonates with people.
Hell yeah, I appreciate that, man, for sure.
Cool, man.
But
Cool. It's good to meet you, dude. Thanks a
of course,
lot.
of course, man. Again, I appreciate you for all the kind words and for coming on the show. It was fun as hell chatting with
Yeah,
you. For
man.
sure.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Later, man.
Bye.